At 10:18 this morning, the ground beneath western Japan tore open in ways that scientists did not expect. A magnitude 6.2 earthquake struck Shimane Prefecture at a depth so shallow it amplified every tremor into violent, furniture-toppling chaos. Within minutes, 21 aftershocks followed, each one a warning that the crust is still adjusting, still breaking. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not like this, not on the western coast where the earth is supposed to stay quiet. Why did the shaking feel so intense? What makes this earthquake different from the hundreds Japan experiences every year? And what does the pattern of aftershocks reveal about what might come next? The Japan Meteorological Agency recorded the first rupture at exactly 10:18 a.m. local time. Its epicenter located in eastern Shimane Prefecture, along the border with Tottori. The moment magnitude scale measured 6.2, a reading confirmed by the United States Geological Survey with a slightly lower initial estimate of 5.8, later adjusted to 5.7 as more seismic data streamed in. This is not a minor tremor. A magnitude 6.2 earthquake releases energy equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT, enough force to collapse unreinforced structures and send waves of panic through entire cities. The tremor struck the western Chugoku region, an area that includes Shimane, Tottori, Hiroshima, and Okayama prefectures. Matsue, the capital of Shimane, sits just 25 kilometers from the epicenter. Yasugi, an industrial city of 37,000 people, is even closer. In Sakai Minato, a port city in Tottori, residents felt their homes lurch sideways as walls cracked and dishes shattered. The shaking spread outward in concentric rings, reaching as far as Hiroshima and the northern shores of the inland sea. But this was only the first warning. Within the first 7 hours after the main shock, seismometers across the region detected 21 aftershocks. The strongest came just 19 minutes after the initial rupture, a magnitude 5.1 tremor that registered as a lower 5 on Japan's seismic intensity scale. By 5 p.m. local time, the count had climbed, each new event a reminder that the fault had not finished moving. Some aftershocks measured magnitude 4.5, others reached 5.4, all of them shallow, all of them close. The clustering of aftershocks is not random. When a fault ruptures, it redistributes stress along adjacent segments, sometimes triggering them to slip as well. Scientists at the Japan Meteorological Agency describe this as a cascading adjustment, a domino effect playing out beneath the surface. The rapid succession of strong aftershocks in western Japan signals that the crust is still settling, still absorbing the energy released by the main shock. Seismologists monitor aftershock sequences because they reveal whether the fault system has finished breaking or whether more significant events could follow. The pattern here, multiple magnitude 5+ aftershocks in quick succession, tells a story of continued instability. What came next shocked even the scientists. The epicenter depth was recorded at approximately 10 kilometers, a measurement the USGS classifies as shallow. In seismology, shallow earthquakes occur within the upper crust, the brittle outer layer of the earth that can fracture and slip. Most earthquakes at this depth are felt more intensely at the surface because seismic waves have less distance to travel before reaching populated areas. By comparison, deep earthquakes, those occurring at depths of 100 kilometers or more, dissipate much of their energy before the shaking reaches the surface. 10 kilometers is also a fixed depth estimate, a standard value used when seismic data is insufficient to calculate the exact focal point. But in this case, the shallow reading is consistent with the observed shaking intensity. The closer the rupture is to the surface, the more violent the ground motion. It's a principle of physics that plays out in devastation, in cracked foundations, toppled chimneys, and roads split down the middle. And the signs were already spreading. Japan's seismic intensity scale, known as the Shindo scale, measures not the energy of an earthquake, but the shaking experienced at a given location. On Tuesday morning, Matsue, Yasugi in Shimane, and Sakai Minato, Hino, and Kofu in Totori all recorded a Shindo intensity of strong 5, written as 5+ in official reports. This is not a number to dismiss. At Shindo 5+, unsecured furniture moves across floors, bookshelves topple, pictures fall from walls. Heavy objects shift, and people find it difficult to walk without holding on to something solid. Drivers lose control as their vehicles lurch sideways, tires skidding on pavement that seems to ripple like water. Buildings designed to older codes show visible cracks, mortar crumbling from brick facades. In wooden structures, beams groan and joints separate. For anyone indoors, the sensation is one of instability, as if the ground itself has turned liquid. Shindo 5+ sits in the middle range of Japan's intensity scale, which extends to Shindo 7, the highest level reserved for shaking so violent that people cannot stand, buildings collapse, and entire neighborhoods are leveled. But Shindo 5+ is severe enough to cause injuries, particularly from falling objects, and to trigger widespread fear. But the ground had one more secret. Within minutes of the first shock, NHK, Japan's national broadcaster, aired footage captured by fixed cameras across the region. Power lines swayed in wide, slow arcs, their cables whipping back and forth like jump ropes. Buildings rocked visibly, their facades shuddering, windows flexing in their frames. In one clip, a street-level camera showed sidewalks buckling, manhole covers lifting, and cars jerking to a stop as drivers slammed on their brakes. Inside NHK's Shimane studio, news anchors reporting live from the affected areas wore bright yellow hard hats, a standard protocol during seismic events. The image, professionals in helmets delivering emergency updates while aftershocks rattled the set, reinforced the seriousness of the situation. This was not a drill. This was a region under assault from forces it could not control. The footage also captured the human response. People stumbling out of buildings, clutching children, looking upward at structures they could no longer trust. The visual record of swaying infrastructure and helmeted anchors became a shorthand for the event's intensity, a way to communicate danger even to those who had not felt the shaking themselves. The data streaming into the United States Geological Survey's National Earthquake Information Center painted a picture of a seismic event that extended far beyond a single rupture. Cross-referencing readings from the USGS, the Japan Meteorological Agency, and seismic institutes across Europe, scientists noted that the Western Japan earthquake was not an isolated event, but part of a developing pattern. Shallow crustal earthquakes had been increasing in frequency along Japan's western coast over the past 2 years, a trend that raised questions about stress accumulation and fault behavior. The USGS Shake Map, a tool that estimates ground shaking intensity based on seismic data, showed pockets of strong to very strong shaking radiating outward from the epicenter. Population exposure estimates indicated that more than 500,000 people experienced moderate to strong shaking, with over 100,000 in the zones of very strong shaking, where structural damage is expected. Japan sits at the collision point of 4 major tectonic plates: the Pacific Plate, the Philippine Sea Plate, the Eurasian Plate, and the Okhotsk Plate. This intersection makes Japan one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, a narrow archipelago squeezed by immense geological forces. Approximately 20% of the world's magnitude 6 or larger earthquakes occur in or around Japan, a statistic that reflects the constant grinding and subduction of oceanic crust beneath the islands. The Pacific Ring of Fire, a 40,000-kilometer belt of seismic and volcanic activity, encircles the Pacific Ocean. Japan forms a critical segment of this ring, where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the Okhotsk Plate along the Japan Trench, and the Philippine Sea Plate subducts beneath southwestern Japan at the Nankai Trough. These subduction zones are capable of generating megathrust earthquakes, massive events where locked plates suddenly slip, releasing decades or centuries of accumulated strain. But the ground had one more secret. What makes Tuesday's earthquake unusual is its location. Japan's most destructive earthquakes typically occur along the eastern-facing Pacific coast, where the subduction of oceanic plates produces frequent, powerful tremors. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake, a magnitude 9.0 megathrust event, struck off the northeast coast, generating a tsunami that killed over 15,000 people and triggered the Fukushima nuclear disaster. That earthquake released energy 500 times greater than Tuesday's magnitude 6.2 event. Western Japan, by contrast, experiences far fewer large earthquakes. The last significant event in the region occurred in October 2000, when a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck Tottori Prefecture, registering a Shindo intensity of 6. That quake caused widespread damage and served as a reminder that the western coast, though quieter than the east, is not immune to seismic risk. Tuesday's magnitude 6.2 earthquake in Shimane is the strongest to hit Japan so far in 2026. Its occurrence on the western coast, where strong earthquakes are rare, raises red flags among seismologists. Why is stress accumulating here? What faults are involved? And could this be a precursor to something larger? Seismologists studying Japan's western coast describe a region crisscrossed by smaller, intertwined faults, each capable of generating damaging earthquakes. Professor Yoshihiro Matsumoto, a geophysicist at Kyoto University, explained in a recent interview that the Shimane region sits atop a complex network of crustal faults, some mapped, others still being discovered. These faults do not operate in isolation. When one segment ruptures, it can transfer stress to adjacent faults, triggering them to slip in a cascading sequence. This phenomenon, known as fault triggering, is the underground equivalent of toppling dominoes. The initial rupture alters the stress field, loading nearby faults with additional pressure until they too break. It's a process that can unfold over hours, days, or even years, making it difficult to predict when the next significant earthquake will occur. But this was only the first warning. The 2000 Tottori earthquake serves as a historical reference point for understanding seismic cycles in western Japan. That magnitude 7.3 event, which struck 25 years ago, released a significant amount of accumulated strain. But earthquakes do not reset the clock to zero. Stress continues to build along faults as tectonic plates grind against each other, a process that operates on timescales of decades to centuries. Seismic cycles describe the pattern of strain accumulation and release along a fault. During the interseismic period, stress builds as plates converge. Eventually, the stress exceeds the strength of the rock and the fault ruptures, releasing energy in the form of an earthquake. The co-seismic period, the moment of rupture, is followed by the post-seismic period, when the crust adjusts and aftershocks occur. The fact that 25 years have passed since the last major earthquake in Tottori means that stress has been accumulating once again. Whether Tuesday's magnitude 6.2 earthquake represents the release of some of that stress or a warning sign of more to come is a question that seismologists cannot yet answer with certainty. In Yasugi, a city of 37,000 people just east of the epicenter, the earthquake arrived without warning. Kenji Tanaka, a shopkeeper in the city's commercial district, was restocking shelves when the floor began to roll. At first, he thought a heavy truck had passed outside. Then, the jars on the upper shelves started to rattle, then fall, glass exploding across the tile floor in a cascade of sound and motion. I grabbed the counter and held on. The whole building swayed like a ship. I could hear people shouting outside, car alarms, everything at once. Within seconds, the power went out, and the air filled with dust from cracked plaster and broken drywall. Tanaka waited until the shaking stopped, then rushed outside, joining neighbors in the street, all of them staring at buildings that no longer felt safe. The USGS estimates that more than 500,000 people experienced moderate to strong shaking from Tuesday's earthquake. Of those, approximately 100,000 were in zones where shaking intensity reached strong to very strong, levels associated with structural damage and injury risk. These numbers are derived from shake map analysis, which combines seismic data with population density to estimate exposure. The breakdown reveals the scope of the event. Thousands experienced shaking severe enough to knock objects off shelves, while tens of thousands felt shaking that made it difficult to stand. In the immediate epicenter zone, the intensity was sufficient to crack walls, topple furniture, and trigger landslides on unstable slopes. What came next shocked even the scientists. The Japan Meteorological Agency issued an official warning shortly after the main shock, cautioning that earthquakes measuring Shindo 5+ or higher could occur over the next week, with the highest risk concentrated in the next 2 to 3 days. This is standard protocol following a significant earthquake, but the warning carried added weight given the rapid succession of strong aftershocks already recorded. Aftershock risk declines exponentially over time, but the first 72 hours are critical. Secondary ruptures can be as strong or, in rare cases, stronger than the initial shock. Residents in Shimane and Totori were advised to secure heavy objects, avoid damaged structures, and prepare for additional strong shaking. The uncertainty is palpable. Seismologists can describe probabilities, but they cannot predict the exact timing, location, or magnitude of the next event. Multiple people were hospitalized in Shimane and Totori following the earthquake, though no confirmed fatalities have been reported. Structural damage was observed in several cities, including collapsed stone walls, cracked roads, and damaged roofs. Emergency responders conducted building inspections, marking unsafe structures with red tape and ordering evacuations where necessary. Transportation networks experienced immediate disruptions. JR West, the rail operator, suspended services on the Sanyo Shinkansen line between Hiroshima and Okayama stations due to a power outage triggered by the earthquake. Automated safety systems detected the seismic waves and brought trains to a halt, preventing potential derailments. Services resumed at 1 p.m. after safety inspections confirmed no track damage. And the signs were already spreading. The Shimane nuclear power plant, operated by Chugoku Electric Power Company, sits approximately 32 kilometers from the epicenter. Public concern spiked immediately, memories of Fukushima still fresh in the national consciousness. Chugoku Electric confirmed that the plant's number 2 reactor, which restarted operations in December 2024 after years of post-Fukushima dormancy, continued operating normally. Automated monitoring systems detected no irregularities in cooling systems, containment structures, or radiation levels. Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority issued a statement confirming that all nuclear facilities in the region remained safe. The plant's seismic monitoring network, installed after the 2011 disaster, recorded ground accelerations well within design tolerances. Emergency generators remained on standby, and backup cooling systems underwent automatic status checks. The 2011 Fukushima disaster reshaped nuclear safety protocols across Japan. Every reactor now operates under redundant safety systems designed to withstand extreme shaking and prolonged power outages. Emergency generators can supply cooling water for weeks. Containment structures are reinforced. Staff conduct regular earthquake drills, simulating scenarios where multiple systems fail simultaneously. These measures matter during events like Tuesday's earthquake. While the shaking was strong, it fell well short of the threshold that would trigger automatic shutdown protocols. The reactors continued generating power, feeding electricity into the regional grid even as other parts of the infrastructure faltered. But the ground had one more secret. Japan's earthquake early warning system, one of the most advanced in the world, detected the initial P waves, the fastest seismic waves, within seconds of the rupture. Automated alerts were sent to smartphones across the affected region, giving residents precious seconds to take cover before the slower, more destructive S waves arrived. Television broadcasts were interrupted with emergency warnings, and public address systems in schools, government buildings, and train stations sounded alarms. This system has saved countless lives since its implementation. Trains automatically decelerate when alerts are received, preventing derailments. Factory machinery shuts down to prevent damage. Elevators stop at the nearest floor, allowing passengers to exit. Seconds of warning, though brief, are enough for people to move away from windows, take cover under desks, or step away from heavy objects. The system is not perfect. In some cases, the initial magnitude estimate was lower than the actual shaking, particularly in areas farther from the epicenter. But overall, the early warning network performed as designed, disseminating critical information faster than the earthquake itself could travel. Over the coming days, seismologists will continue monitoring the region for signs of further instability. Aftershock sequences can last for weeks or months, gradually declining in intensity and frequency. But the larger questions remain unanswered. Has Tuesday's earthquake released enough stress to prevent a larger event, or has it simply rearranged the forces at work beneath western Japan? Scientists know that the crust is still adjusting. They know that stress continues to accumulate along unmapped faults. They know that the western coast, though quieter than the east, is capable of generating devastating earthquakes. What they do not know is when the next rupture will occur, how large it will be, or whether Tuesday's magnitude 6.2 event was the main shock or a foreshock to something far worse. In a nation that has learned to live with earthquakes, uncertainty is the only constant. The data is clear, the patterns undeniable, but the Earth keeps its secrets, and the next tremor could come in minutes, weeks, or years. What is Western Japan's crust trying to tell us, and are we listening closely enough?